Like many sportsmen, I dreamed of going to Alaska. However, it just seemed financially out of my reach. Perhaps as a once in a lifetime sort of deal, but other than that, it was pretty much off the table. However, when my family approached me about going to Alaska as a family vacation, I decided to look at it more seriously and see if there was a way that I could do it economically. What I found actually surprised me. It is actually possible to do Alaska on a budget. In fact, we were able to do a 2-week family vacation for about $1,400 per person, airfare included. That was actually pretty darn reasonable, and you can't beat the memories we made. I'm going to share some of the secrets we learned about doing Alaska on a budget. I hope they help you out. Most people think about a lodge type experience when they think about Alaska. However, a lodge is going to run you between $3,500 and $10,000 per person. For normal people, that's just not in reach. Here's a way that you can have, I think, a better experience for a whole lot less money. The first thing you have to decide is what type of a trip you want. If all you want to do is catch boxes and boxes of fish, then perhaps a lodge is actually the best solution. My family wasn't really interested in catching hundreds of pounds of fish. We wanted to fish a little bit, but we really wanted to just have a genuine Alaska experience. Planning is going to be key for your trip. You'd be amazed what you can do self-guided if you take the time to plan out a good itinerary. It'll save you a lot of money, and I think it ends up being a better experience. Once you know where you want to go and what you want to do, the first thing we have to look at is flights. Flights can end up being a major cost. The biggest way to save on flights is to give yourself plenty of time and check back frequently. You'd be surprised the deals you can find if you're patient. We found $300 round-trip airfare. That find alone saved us thousands and thousands of dollars. The next thing to consider is where you're going to stay. This is probably the biggest expense for most people. You can book a hotel or even an Airbnb, but this is going to be a really major expense. There's a lot cheaper ways to do it, and I think they're better. One of the problems with a hotel or an Airbnb is that they actually put you a long ways from where you want to go. If you have to drive back and forth from a major city to the sites you want to visit, this could add hours and hours of driving, plus fuel expense, all of which could be avoided fairly easily. The first would just be camping in the area where you're doing the activities. For some people, this is a definite no-go. The thought of bears or not having a shower for a few days is going to be a make-it-or-break-it deal. But if this is something you enjoy, you could essentially have your lodging for free. The next step up from here is going to be the Alaska public use cabins. There's almost 300 public use cabins throughout Alaska, and they're very reasonable, between $35 and $70 a night, not per person, total. That really opens a lot of opportunities. They're spread out throughout the state, and you could move from cabin to cabin without much problem. This is camping. There won't be showers or any other amenities, but it's a place that you can get away from rain, wildlife, and just really enjoy the outdoors. The next step up from here is probably going to be small little cabins that individuals are renting out. These can be pretty economical and oftentimes provide a much needed shower. Another often overlooked option is an RV. They seem pretty expensive at first, $300 or more a night. However, if you factor in what a rental car is going to cost you and then what a hotel room would cost, these can actually be really cheap, especially if you have 4 to 6 people with whom to split the cost. It ends up just being dollars a day, and the nice thing is that your lodging moves with you. There's no commuting back and forth. You just drive from place to place and have adventures as you go. It's a really convenient way to do it, and cheaper than you would think. Depending on where you go, car rentals can be pretty expensive. You could use something like Turo, which can work out pretty well. It can also have some downsides that I won't go into here. However, if moving from place to place is part of your plan, you really can't do without a car of some sort. There are actually a couple of rental car free options that you might want to consider. One would be a fly-out trip. Some of the public use cabins are in very remote places. You have to book a float plane or a boat to get to these places. However, once you're there, you're guaranteed to have the place to yourself. It can be an amazing experience. And if you compare it to the cost of renting a rental car, a lot of times you break even, and once you're there, you don't have to worry about transportation at all. It's something to consider. It's definitely a very unique vacation. Other options, like a week-long floating trip down a river, or being dropped on a deserted beach for a week of camping, are also once-in-a-lifetime memorable trips that you could plan. Hiring a guide or a charter boat can actually be less expensive than you might think. They are fairly expensive, but the knowledge that you gain from fishing with a guide for a day can make the whole rest of the trip go much smoother. Or if you rent a charter boat and go catch salmon or halibut, you actually get to spend a whole day out in the ocean, which, if you thought of it just as a scenic cruise, would probably be worth it. Then you get to throw in some fishing as well. Something else that opens a whole lot of opportunities is just to rent gear once you get there. You can rent everything from a canoe or a kayak to a fishing boat to a river raft. All of these things open up other opportunities and ways that you can have a fantastic vacation for not a whole lot of cost. Additionally, you really have to watch luggage costs. What the airlines charge these days is outrageous. It may actually be cheaper to just rent a tent and all the camping gear once you get there, rather than pay for it in your luggage. Another thing with renting camping gear or a motorhome is this allows you to cook all of your own food. We all know that eating out is the most expensive way to eat. If you can cook your own food, it'll literally save you thousands of dollars. My family and I splurged a couple of times on a restaurant meal, but for the most part, we cooked our own. And actually, it's really hard to beat fresh salmon cooked over a campfire or blueberry pancakes that you just picked the blueberries less than an hour ago. Another thing that can reduce the cost of a fishing trip, although my wife doesn't buy this logic, is to catch a lot of fish. If you come home with 100 pounds of salmon, if you figure $5 a pound, that's $500 worth of salmon you're bringing home. In my mind, that takes $500 right off the cost of the trip. I usually fillet my own fish and then find a place that'll help me package and freeze them. This will usually save you $1 or so a pound. Then when I'm ready to go home, I just buy a fish box, throw my frozen fillets in there, and then just check it as luggage. It costs a little bit, but it's cheaper than mailing it home. You'll get to enjoy your Alaska trip for 6 months or a year after you get home every time you open one of those fresh fillets. Another thing you might want to consider that counterintuitively does drop the price of the trip is to stay more days. Getting to Alaska is not very easy, no matter where you're coming from. Additionally, the airfare is one of the greatest expenses. So if you can schedule a few extra days for your trip, it actually brings the cost per day down quite a bit. I've never regretted taking a couple extra days of vacation to spend in Alaska. Hopefully these tips will bring an Alaska vacation within your reach. If you have questions about an Alaska vacation or tips and tricks that'll help other people, please leave them in the comments. Enjoy your Alaska vacation.